So hi everybody here and online. I will be relying a little bit on my notes, so apologies if I haven't got eye contact continually. Like as Nagashuri said, this internal harsh self-speech has been something that I've been very aware of for a long time, and I guess it's something that I've tended to just accept as part of me, because it's not something I'm particularly interested in looking at, really. So I didn't focus on it. It's, I just wore it. Now, I know that this is a series of talks on the precepts, and I've landed on this topic today because I know that the precepts have given me a stack of fodder for self-judgment and harsh internal speech. And I say that understanding that the precepts are meant to be guidelines and not rules, and also acknowledging that we're meant to be applying the precepts in self-kindness. But notwithstanding that, I have taken every opportunity to give myself a bit of a hard time with my internal conversation, and I can tell you it's not just about the precepts. So in the last few months in particular, I've been focusing on metta and self-compassion. I went to a retreat earlier in the year where I realised I needed to. And so I've been doing that as a part of the process of tackling this issue. And I guess I realised that others also struggle with this issue. Probably all of us to some extent. So I thought I'd share what I found in the hope that it can help even a little bit. So as I said, it's not a new issue for me. And I have in the past undertaken to be kinder to myself, to compare myself less with others, and not always put so many demands on myself. And essentially I use the strategy of just notice it and let it go. But I haven't found that very effective for myself. Because I know that I'm a little bit of a head over heart person. And therefore, understanding what's going on has been important to me to help me, penetrate the issue. And recently I've come across some information which I found quite useful and I thought I'd tell you about. I found a book that provided me with some psychology-based insights into the evolution of the tendency to be self-critical. And it provided me with a way to question that idea of my own self-harshness as just being me. And it's provided some confidence that I could tackle it. So the book is by Kristen Neff. I don't know if you've heard of it, I hadn't before, and it's called Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. Now, I was a little bit iffy about buying this book because, it felt like I might be engaging in a self-help thing, the psychology, self-help counselling, stuff. But it turns out that the book did have something really interesting and useful to say to me about this underlying patterns that go with this harsh self-talk. I think her reassuring starting point was the only way to have self-compassion for yourself is to realise that the neurotic ego cycles that underlie harsh self-speech and harsh self-assessment are not of our choosing. They are
I was going to say, can you repeat it?
Yeah, I will. Okay, they are a natural and universal part of the human inheritance. So I'll say it again. Neurotic ego cycles that underlie harsh self-assessment are not of our choosing. They are natural and universal, and they are part of our human inheritance. So what does that mean? Well, she identifies that the tendency to ruthless self-criticism as being associated with an evolutionary need to be safe. Our development, both as a species and as individuals, is fundamentally based on our survival instincts, developed because we have evolved in hierarchical social groups. And even though our evolutionary circumstances have changed, there's some hard wiring in ourselves that hasn't. So her theory is that as humans evolved, the dominant members of any group were less likely to be rejected and more likely to get greater access to the resources that were available. Equally, she says that the subordinate members of a group, they're just the lowest everyday come and accept what may type members, were equally likely to be secure in their place in the group. They might get the pickings later, but they got pickings. So we don't want to be outcasts. It's a strong subconscious driver, even if it's less vital in the modern world, to keep ourselves safe and secure. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about that. So her idea is that we can be going along thinking that we're feeling pretty confident, maybe not dominant, but sort of towards that end, okay, secure, feeling that we're deserving. But if that confidence is shaken, if we have to face the fact that our self-image does not measure up to what we aspire to be, then all too often we can viciously attack ourselves. And when self-criticism will propel us from that feeling of top security to bottom subordinacy. But either one of those are about feeling safe, that we will have access to remaining in the group and access to the resources we need. So if we attack ourselves and put ourselves at the bottom of the heap, as it were, then we already are more likely to act in a way that others will see as subordinate and will be protected. So her idea is that we shift fairly quickly from feeling okay to putting ourselves at the bottom because we fear exclusion. So basically it's our lizard brain working to avoid that exclusion that provides the energy behind self-judgment. But what we judge ourselves about is very much a product of our individual lives in a modern circumstance. And I've just got a couple of examples. So we all have been raised either in a family or in some sort of similar situation where that group has been vital to our early survival. Children have no choice but to rely on the parents or parent figures that they have. And parents tend to use criticism to keep their kids out of trouble, to improve their behaviour, or to make them work harder, say at school. And some parents use it more than others. And children exposed to a lot of criticism can internalise the view. They can come to assume that criticism is a useful and motivational tool, and we get very good at using it on ourselves. And again, if kids are blamed for making mistakes, they can come to believe that they're personally responsible for their own failures down the track. The belief can develop that falling short is an option that can be avoided with effort, and that if we do fall short, it's because we haven't put in enough effort. Even though they are misguided, these invisible views can stick tight. The belief that self-criticism and double thinking and trying harder will motivate me will keep me on the track and prevent mistakes is one that I feel that I can relate to, that I should just try harder, even when I don't feel like it. And if I don't feel like it, well, what can I expect? I'm not going to live up to what I want to do, so it's a self-perpetuating circle. And no matter how successful a person, these types of views can continue to have force because they're accepted as home views. We're just stuck with them as they might be wrong views, but they're views that we've grown up with, might have internalized, don't even realize we have, but we live by. And using them, we can really give ourselves a hard time. So another example is looking at the cultural messages that we grow up with, not necessarily from families, but from media, from school, from whatever. And they can also contribute to the potential to be self-critical. We have a societal ethic of individual achievement and independence. And as we absorb that, it's possible to develop the idea that if we don't reach our goals, then we only have ourselves to blame. And that can be really a lonely place to be. We pick up these messages, we store them away. We see people that we think of as successful or attractive and reinforce the ideas we have. We compare ourselves to them. And because we tend to pick the people that we respect most, that we see as really, up there, then we can reliably fall short of what we see that we want to be. Another example I'm not going to go into, but I reckon has a rich possibility here is religion. If you've grown up with an exposure to the Christian religion, I think there will be a whole lot of, and I did, and I can feel, a whole lot of views about right and wrong, self-value versus other value that we can internalize as being truth, but they're not. So obviously what I've been talking about is generalizations. But I know that as I read about these possibilities, that I could piece together memories and experiences that I've got that have informed views which are not very helpful. Things like what I do wrong or what I should not do, and what I should achieve, and how others might be more important than me. And all too often, my poor dead father comes into my mind. I mean, I found this process helpful, but it's not because I want to blame my father, or I might, but it provides some reason, some logic behind ways of being. And and if they have an intelligible, logical origin, it provides me with a confidence that if I'm motivated by self-compassion, I can tackle these tendencies. So another book I'm reading at the moment with some people that are here is a book by Rodney Smith, and it's called Stepping Out of Self-Deception. It introduces the idea, just in part, that when you spot something in yourself, like self-judgment, that it's wise to step towards it. Spend some time with it. See if you can detect its cause, its origin, feel the root of the message. He says that although your initial wish may be to get it out of your head and not think about it, that if it's not attended to, it will not be dealt with. And I've found that stepping towards my tendencies that I've just gone on about it is an important step. I found myself thinking about these tendencies to be helpful, especially with this maybe pseudo-psychological stuff, but it's been helpful to put it in perspective for me. So my reading and thinking has provided a perspective in which I feel that I'm really empowered to understand the origin of a whole lot of unhelpful views and therefore see them less critically. By taking the shame away and allowing self-compassion to arise and motivate me, I feel that I have more of an ability or a likely potential to identify the self-harshness earlier, recognise the nature of it more quickly, and choose how to respond. And with an aspiration that I can be more self-trusting and heart-aware rather than depending on these harsh self-views. So I feel a bit optimistic. Harsh ways of being are habits. I can get to work changing habits that have been imposed on me as I've grown, and that might have been driven by my lizard brain of wanting to be accepted. Regular mindful attention can allow me to reorientate my unhelpful views and change these habitual ways of thinking. And helping myself in this way, I think, will be really kind to myself, not least in how I approach the precepts. So I thought I'd finish on that note. Anyway, that's it. So thanks for listening. And I've got a few questions in case we're going to break up into groups. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'll just tell you more or less what the questions are. They're only obvious guidelines, really, in a way. I mean, do you have a harsh inner critic? And is it repetitive and recognisable? Do you tend to avoid turning towards yourself when you're undergoing this self-criticism? And do you feel there's something that you can do to tackle it? Yeah.
Thank you so much.